What do we mean when we say the web? Well, if you're a business or a brand or a nonprofit organization, a professional person, really, if you're any type of emerging enterprise, you might think of it like this. So the web is a crummy stock diagram. All right. And if that feels antiquated, that's because there are some very basic and very profound changes happening to how we internet. So first, let's question, what does this diagram really show us? It's obviously not the technical infrastructure of the web. That's this or this. Rather, what we're looking at here is a mode of presence, web presence, right? It's some of the various kinds of being online, albeit with a pretty strong bent towards entities that need to market themselves. And as uninspired as it may be, the diagram's not wrong. It's sort of what we all just know to be true by now. But we're also all witnessing it change into something else. In fact, we've all been taking part in the transformation of the very landscape of the internet for some time. The signals are right there in our own behaviors. Most of us just haven't seen the map yet. Let's try this on for some conceptual shape. So this illustration is by Maggie Appleton. It builds off some of the ideas of Venkatash Rao and Yancey Strickler. Venkat would describe these layers as different flavors of internet. Each has distinct technical features and protocols, but also its own vibe and cadence for how people feel and interact. At the top, we have the dark forests within what some would call the clear net. It sits at the surface for a reason. This is the mainstream web that we all know, the one that's largely an economy of surveillance capitalism. It's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's the internet we all get anxiety about. Strickler talks about how challenging it can feel to just like be yourself on the clear net because you don't know who else is around and who's watching, and you don't know when you might get cyberbullied or shamed or swatted. So we're afraid to show ourselves on the clear web, a lot of us. We've scurried away into its dark forests. We made Finsta accounts. We used the disappearing message feature. We deleted old tweets, and we dug into subreddits to converse with like minds. I hate that term. But we never really escaped that feeling of anxiety. They're called dark forests because they're scary. There are predators in here. As Appleton describes it, they take the forms of advertisers and tracking bots and clickbait, attention seekers, gross influencers, condescending Twitter repliers, and trolls. You can run and hide, but it's a nasty troll-infested forest out there. Then at the bottom, we have what's known as the dark web. If you're looking for something that truly protects your privacy, this is where you might go, but it might get scary again. This is the anonymous web that requires special browsers like Tor. It happens to be where a lot of the most morally reprehensible and criminal activity is happening. It's also not exactly user-friendly. It's messy, it's slow, it's pretty difficult to navigate. But it's probably extremely important for the dark web to exist, if only for whistleblowers and political dissidents. I think some level of aberration, at least the possibility of crime, has got to be healthy for any society, including online. Think about the legalizations of cannabis in recent years. The lines dividing what's acceptable from what's not are neither clear nor fixed. They tend to evolve. Black markets and gray markets play a role in changing these kinds of norms, and the dark web is where that can happen. We don't need to go there today too much. For most of us, escaping the dark forest of the clear web is just a matter of digging down a little bit, right? And we've been doing it for years now. To get away from the anxiety-inducing incentives and exploitative models of social media companies, we just started burrowing away down into the safe, soft, mushy earth of the cozy web. The cozy web is casual and comfy. It's safe. If your volleyball team has a Discord server or you're on a WhatsApp group chat called Fam Jam, if that group chat has a couple side group chats, then you're already part of this move toward the cozy web. It's been happening for quite some time now. Maggie Appleton calls it the tiny underground burrows of Slack channels, WhatsApp groups, Discord chats, and Telegram streams that offer shelter and respite from the aggressively public nature of Facebook, Twitter, and every recruiter looking to connect on LinkedIn. It's neatly consistent with the metaphor that we're all familiar with. These are the grassroots. So as Venkat puts it, the cozy web runs on a very human protocol of everybody cutting and pasting bits of text, images, URLs, and screenshots across different live streams. Each cozy web space, of course, has its own cultural norms and conventions. We know this from WhatsApp and iMessage group chats, the ones we share with our family and friends too. There's an etiquette involved. If you don't respond with an emoji, you might offend someone. There's drama, there's gossip, there's backroom and side chats. It's all the stuff that actually makes communities cohere. More and more, the richest online activity is happening here in the cozy web. Part of that is because these spaces are not gamified. No one's keeping score of likes and retweets. You're not incentivized to go viral or stir shit up. So you eliminate some nonsense that way. And the cozy webs are gatekept. They're closed. You're not likely to get harassed or doxxed or canceled in a friendly group chat, hopefully, depending on your friends. So you're comfy to speak your ideas. Conversation starts to get richer. Another reason why the cozy web hosts the most meaningful online relationships is because these tend to be spaces where communities are in a state of becoming. They're still forming. Now, that could be a group chat where you're making plans for dinner on Saturday. It could also be a Discord server for a new art collective you're forming. Either way, you're involved in something that's growing and changing. There's an energy to that. It's potential. It's exciting. Discord has really become the go-to cozy web place for clubs, startups, teams, gamer communities, whatever, to just go and collectively kick it and chill, to hang out. Functionally, it's pretty straightforward. It's basically a messaging platform with voice chat. But practically, Discord is treated like a clubhouse where everyone is just there, hanging. It's casual and cozy. It's where communities form and develop and strengthen these days. This is where it's happening. It's more productive because it's not as noisy as a traditional social media channel, and it feels way better. Now, right above the cozy web, there's this in-between space. It's a subtle layer. Below the dark forests of the clear web and just above the safe and comfortable cozy web, we have what are known as digital gardens. They're public, technically, if you know where to find them, but they're not so exposed, not so dangerous feeling, because in your digital garden, you're camouflaged. You're a little less vulnerable to the surveillance and targeting of advertising, to say nothing of the edgelords and trolls you've got to worry about. The simplest explanation I've heard for defining digital gardens is that they're at the intersection of a personal notebook and a public blog. They take the form of RSS feeds, newsletters, Substacks, or they're built on platforms like Notion and Arena, where people are drawing rhizomatic connections, working and thinking and learning in public, and building their ideas on a fertile base of research. Digital gardens are social in a sense, but not like Twitter and IG, because they don't have the same incentives. Their interfaces aren't based on algorithms that reward maximal clickage. The tools people are using to tend their digital gardens, like Arena or this one from Haifa Cooperative, are designed to show and navigate the connections we're making among ideas, real time and in public. In concept, the digital gardens sound a lot like a return to the personal hobby website, and sometimes people associate it aesthetically with this old school artisanal web design of the 90s, the unpolished, constantly under construction GeoCities site with the counter. Back then, these were literally just called personal websites. And there was a great deal of literary romance around the idea of hypertext, that it would completely change the way we write and think. In some ways it has, but today hypertext couldn't be a more normal part of the reading experience. Nowadays, we just call it links. It's just links, drawing connections. And links create links, not just to other information, but also to other people. In this sense, the digital gardens are very much a social media, but not in a look at me, I'm broadcasting into everyone's feed kind of way. It's slower, it's quieter, it's a lot more subtle. You're just doing what you do, working with the garage door up, as Robin Sloan puts it. People are aware of it really only on an if you know, you know basis. And if you know, it's because you're likely interested in the same kinds of subjects and ideas. You're part of the same milieu. And you get that digital gardener is showing their work in progress. Because the audience understands this, they permit it. They let you do your thing. And they're more likely to offer constructive feedback than harsh criticism. You get interruptions, but they're like better interruptions, because as a digital gardener, you open yourself up to the possibility of serendipity, of someone from another field walking by and offering you the clue that leads you to your breakthrough. To cultivate this kind of creative atmosphere, we need an attitude of what my colleague Udit Vira calls draft positivity. It's a play on social movements like body positivity or sex positivity or any other type of positivity. And it's very related, right? Body positivity, sex positivity, financial positivity. These are movements designed to challenge certain unhealthy social constructs about standards of beauty or about what kinds of activities and lifestyles and conversation topics are considered shameful or taboo to get involved in or talk about in public. But draft positivity is here to say there is dignity in the draft. Think again of that 90s GeoCities page, proudly donning a permanent under construction sign. Like the other positivities, it's about acceptance of or even love for the work in progress. So I'm absolutely someone who feels apprehensive about showing early drafts of my writing as I'm doing now. Many of us probably suffer from the same problem, but when I think about it, I realize this is ridiculous, right? Especially because when is something ever actually complete? Everything is a work in progress after all. I always love the way Paul Valery put it, that a poem is never finished, only abandoned, whether tossed in the trash or published in a journal. But draft positivity is now manifesting online in lots of different interesting ways. Sometimes tools like a browser-based word processor, aka Google Docs, are actually functioning as websites because they're so easy to update and evolve in real time. This was Brood's homepage for a long time. They're the agency that created the virtual influencer Lil Michaela. It's a Google Doc. It's a website. It's a Google Doc. It's a website. But yeah, it's just like an attitude of pump out a Google Doc, launch a new project, a new enterprise. Publish it as fast as you conceive it. Edit, update, evolve it in real time. No judgy. Remember when you get into the comments here, this is a draft positive space, okay? So what is a website today? How do you get to it? What are you looking for? Oftentimes it's just this, right? A link tree. Here's our digital garden. Here's our cozy web. Here's our latest project. Here's our social channels. What more do you need? I think my favorite manifestation of draft positivity is in the form of a fairly new category of tool, which is the infinite canvas. So these are these browser-based virtual zoomable whiteboards like Miro, Figma, and so on. They're functionally kind of like an Adobe Illustrator, InDesign or something, but with less features, easier to use, and most importantly, collaborative. They're for spatial sense making, just like you might do with Post-it notes on a physical whiteboard, but in a virtual one. And they don't demand any kind of publish-ready completion. They're shareable, though, but they facilitate the scrappy thinking, the early ideating of new concepts. So you kind of are publishing your work in progress and sharing it, and that can facilitate a lot of really good strategy and design work and ideation and just thinking. The drafty aesthetics often reflect this key factor about cozy web spaces and digital gardens, that the entity or the enterprise or the project you're looking at, it's still in its state of becoming, much like the web itself. It's changing, getting a little cozier and quieter. So that's our kind of primer on how the web is changing, or maybe your intro to the cozy web. And by the way, if you can't find it, it's because you're not invited.